In this video, we'll be making the Learn Embroidery with DMC kit, which is suitable for beginners. The kit includes cotton fabric, an embroidery needle, DMC perlé embroidery thread, and an embroidery hoop. I'll also be using some embroidery scissors. Start by putting the fabric in the embroidery hoop. Using a hoop will keep the fabric taut and make it easier to stitch. Undo the screw and separate the rings. Place your fabric over the smaller ring and pop the outside ring over the top. Tighten the screw and tension the fabric all the way round. The chart shows which colour and which stitch to use for each section of the design. For example, A2 is a running stitch in shade 817. This kit is a sampler which will help you to learn the stitches that you can use to embroider the words and the flower on the right. Samplers are a very traditional way of learning stitches and testing out threads to find out which ones you like the most. To thread your needle, pinch the end of the thread between your finger and thumb. Hold the needle so that the eye faces you and push the needle onto the end of the thread. We'll start with the running stitch, which is a great beginner stitch you can use for edges, lettering and stems. We want to avoid using knots at the back of the work as they can look lumpy, and when you start to do more advanced stitches they can get in the way. Instead, bring your needle up through the fabric at the start of the row of stitching and leave a tail at the back. Hold this along the line where you're going to stitch, so that as you stitch, your stitches will secure the thread. Make a straight stitch covering the design line on the fabric. Continue to make straight stitches, covering the design lines. When you finish the row, turn your work over and secure the thread by sliding the needle under a few of your stitches. The next stitch is back stitch, which is also good for outlines, lettering and stems. To work back stitch, start one stitch length along from the end of the design line and make a straight stitch back to the beginning. Then bring the needle up 1 stitch length ahead and down at the end of the first stitch. Continue until you've covered the design line. Next, we'll do the stem stitch. Stem stitch creates a rope-like texture, is great for outlines and letterings, as well as stems. Start by making a straight stitch, but don't pull the thread all the way through. Instead, leave a loop on the surface of your fabric and push this to the right side. Bring your needle up in the middle of that stitch, halfway between the start and end of your first stitch. Then pull the thread all the way through. Take the needle down, taking care to keep the next stitch the same length. Repeat the process. Repeat the process, leaving a loop on the surface. Push it to the right and bring your needle up halfway. Once you've covered all the design lines, secure your thread at the back of the work in the same way as before. Next we'll do the straight stitch. These straight stitches can be scattered around to add texture or fill sections of a design. Work along the row, making stitches to cover all the design lines. Now we'll do the satin stitch, which is one of the most popular stitches for filling shapes. It really shows off the beautiful sheen of DMC threads. It's great for monograms, petals and leaves. Bring your needle up on the outside of the shape, halfway along the side of the shape. Hold the thread on the surface of the fabric to set the angle of your stitches. Take the needle down outside the shape. Bring the needle back up very close to the start of the first stitch and back down so that your second stitch lays perfectly next to your first. Continue making satin stitches, each butted up against the last, until you reach the edge of your shape. Then move across and fill the second half of the shape in the same way. And secure your thread at the back of your work in the usual way. Continue across, doing satin stitches to fill all the other shapes on the design. Next we'll do the lazy daisy stitch, also known as detached chain stitch or single chain stitch. Lazy daisy stitches can be made in a circle to create a simple flower or scattered to fill a shape or add texture. Bring the needle up where you want the point of this petal-shaped flower to be. Take the needle back down through the same hole, leaving a loop of thread on the surface of the fabric. Bring your needle up where you want the top of this petal shape to be and gently tighten the thread against your needle. Then make a small stitch over the loop of thread to secure it to the surface of the fabric. Bring your needle up where you want the point of this petal-shaped stitch to go. Leaving a loop of thread on the surface of the fabric, take the needle back down through the same hole. Then bring the needle up where you want the top of the petal to be and gently tighten your thread around your needle. Then make a small stitch to secure the top of the petal to the surface of the fabric. The last stitch to learn is the French knot. Bring the thread up where you want the French knot to be positioned. Then, holding the needle horizontally, wrap the thread once around the needle. Then put the tip of the needle back down through the fabric, right next to but not in the same hole that you brought it up, keeping a little bit of tension on the thread. Slowly pull the needle through. Now you've learned all the stitches, you can use back stitch to embroider the words, satin stitch to do the big petals on the flower, lazy daisies to do these open petals on the flower, running stitch to outline the centre of the flower, straight stitches in the centre of the flower, and finish off with your French knots. Then you can use stem stitch to work the stem and the outline of this leaf. Thank you for choosing to learn embroidery with DMC.